After facing mounting pressure from activists and voters and people that just care about human rights, a number of 2020 Democratic candidates announced last week that they would not be attending the AIPAC conference this week. One of those many candidates included Kamala Harris. So check out this tweet. Kamala Harris is not going to AIPAC, an aide confirms to Politico. So for many of us, this signified, maybe a shift in her policy. So Kamala Harris has been a huge supporter of the right-wing Israeli government and their occupation of Palestinians. Maybe she has changed her mind and has actually recognized the human rights abuses that are going on there. Well, apparently nothing at all has changed. She just continues to play both sides of this argument. So she tweeted this out just a couple days ago. Great to meet in my office with California AIPAC leaders to discuss the need for a strong U.S.-Israel alliance, the right of Israel to defend itself, and my commitment to combat anti-Semitism in our country and around the world. So apparently, nothing has changed for Kamala Harris. Now, look, this tweet, of course, all the candidates support combating anti-Semitism in the U.S. and around the world. But when you align yourself with AIPAC, you are aligning yourself with the right-wing Israeli government that continues to oppress and actually occupy Palestinians in Gaza. So just to give you some perspective here, this is a tweet from Remy Kanazi. So he's a writer and organizer. He's been featured in the New York Times, BBC, and other outlets. He tweeted this out on the same day that Kamala Harris tweeted that tweet. In Gaza, 95% of water is unfit for drinking. 39% live in poverty. 58% of youth are unemployed. 80% are reliant on international aid. 70% are refugees. And 100% are trapped under Israeli siege, occupation, and endless bombing campaigns. So, these are a lot of stats here to take in. And look, I looked into these numbers to ensure that they were actually real. And in many cases, at least in one case, one of the numbers were actually an underestimate. So this is a headline here. 97%, instead of 95%, 97% of Gaza drinking water contaminated by sewage salt, expert warns. Gazans are forced to buy water at 6 times the standard rate from private enterprises. And again, if you're wondering why conditions there are so bad, Gaza remains under Israeli occupation. Israel controls Gaza's imports and exports. Israel denies basic necessities and infrastructure needs from entry. Israel famously put Palestinians on a diet, restricting access to goods. Israeli siege itself is violence and collective punishment. So, Gazans are living in an open-air prison. This is an Israeli occupation of the Palestinian people. Yet, for some reason, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are largely on the side of the right-wing Israeli government that are committing these human rights abuses. Now, to be, I guess, kind of fair to Kamala Harris, really very few Democrats and almost no Democratic candidates except for Bernie Sanders have really spoken up about these issues. Now, there are some other... Look, I don't want to get into the weeds. There are some other smaller candidates that may have spoken up about this before, but really the only high-profile candidate that has really discussed this issue is Bernie Sanders. And look, if there are others, and you could point me to links, please comment below, because I even looked into Tulsi Gabbard, who has a mixed record on Israel, and she really has not said much at all about what the Israeli government is doing in Gaza. Now, the other question here is, where's the media on this? So it's one thing for politicians to take, for all of them to essentially take the same side of one issue. It's another thing for the media to not be raising the profile on these issues. So just a small shift here in what I'm talking about. There's been a large discussion about Russia and Trump. But did you hear anything at all from the media about Russia or about Trump and Israel? Now, if you're wondering why I'm asking that question, let me show you this headline and some of this information. Trump's transition team colluded with Israel. Why isn't that news? And this is a headline and story from Mehdi Hassan, who is a well-respected journalist, and this piece was in The Intercept in December 2017. Thanks to Mueller's ongoing investigation, we now know that prior to President Donald Trump's inauguration, members of his inner circle went to bat on behalf of Israel, and specifically on behalf of illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories, behind the scenes and in opposition to official U.S. foreign policy. That's the kind of collusion with a foreign state that has gotten a lot of attention with respect to the Kremlin. But colluding with Israel seems to be of far less interest, strangely. Now, there was a lot of, or at least some online reporting about this at the time, but there really was not much of a discussion of this at all in mainstream press. So BuzzFeed News actually broke down some of these details here. It was Kushner who told Flynn to make calls about Israel UN vote, source says. The president's son-in-law prompted the December 22nd, 2016 call to Russia's ambassador that is the focus of Flynn's guilty plea on Friday. Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law, called Michael Flynn in December 2016 and told him to call members of the UN Security Council in an effort to stop a vote on a resolution critical of Israeli settlement policy, according to a person who was present in the room when Flynn took the call. Now, this should be a huge story. This should have been a huge story. All you have to do here is replace the word Israel with Russia, and this would have been the focus of all the media attention for the past 2+ years. But it wasn't, because it wasn't about Russia. It was about Israel, which again has a very strong lobby in the U.S. that pushes a certain angle in terms of the right-wing Israeli government angle on both, again, the Republicans and the Democratic Party. So this is a situation here where it's a failure not just of politicians like Kamala Harris, who continue to allow this kind of behavior to take place and not call it out publicly, but it's also the issue of the media not putting a spotlight on this. So once again, apart from Israel and Palestine here, you have a situation where you have a politician simply playing both sides of the argument, expecting to fool everyone.